All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners meeting for April 16th. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, again, good morning, everybody. First thing on our agenda are our minutes. Gentlemen, do we have any additions or corrections?
No, I don't have that. Look good, Kim, thank you.
I move to approve the proceedings of Board of County Commissioners for Montezuma County for April 9th, 2024 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the proceedings of the Board of Commissioners, Montezuma County, April 9th, 2024. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next up is planning. And it looks like we have a public hearing, so do we have the application respondents here?
Yeah. Don's here.
Come on down. All right, it is 9:01. Would you call a roll, Kim, please?
Commissioner Candelaria.
Here.
Commissioner Lindsey.
Here.
Commissioner Copenhaver.
Here.
Administrator Anderson.
Here.
Attorney McLaren.
Here.
Kim Purcell, Montezuma County Clerk and Recorder. Notice is hereby given that the Montezuma County Board of County Commissioners will hold a public hearing for review and determination regarding a proposed high-impact special use permit and general plan unit development application submitted by Robbins Family Ranches, Agent Brian McLaughlin, on property located at 9900, 10010, and 10008, Road 43, Mancos, Colorado, consisting of 32 acres permitted envelope, more or less, located north of Highway 160, situated in Section 23, Township 36 North, Range 13, West, N.M.P.M. The hearing will be held Tuesday, April 16th, 2024 at 9 a.m. in the Commissioners' Hearing Room, Montezuma County Administrative Offices, 109 West Main, Cortez, Colorado. Interested persons may attend and give input. Information may be obtained from the Planning Department online services at https://co-montezuma-co.smartgovcommunity.com public home. You may also contact the Planning Department at 970-565-2801 with questions. Dated this 18th day of March 2024, Kim Purcell, Clerk, Board of County Commissioners, Montezuma County, Colorado, published in the Journal on Wednesday, March 27th, 2024.
All right, thank you, Kim. Okay, Don, would you give us an overview on this, please?
Sure. So the Yeomans are applying for a planned unit development for glamping resort on, it actually covers parts of 3 parcels of theirs. One whole parcel that's like a 3-acre lot, and then parts of 2 of their larger parcels. They're proposing to have 5 glamping sites. They will have a community bath, restroom, shower house that is already installed with a permitted septic system. And that's basically it. There will be a legal description for the permitted envelope, and it will be a high-impact permit. They're proposing up to 24 vehicle round trips a day if all of the sites are full. It also encompasses a rental house that's on the 3-acre property as part of the development.
Okay, Mr. McLaughlin, would you like to add anything?
Yeah. The details, Travis, are on the next page, a little closer view of, I believe there's going to be, what, two wagons, a silo, a tent on a platform, and a yurt. Something to that effect?
Yurt or is that teepee?
Teepee, there you go.
And it's in the floodplain zone, so everything's going to have to be built up a foot. to, you know, satisfy what the county requires and stuff like that. But
Okay.
there'll be a tent that's 13 by 23, a teepee, a silo, and then a sheep herder's wagon, and then this other covered wagon that we have. And the covered wagon's 10 by 25, got a king bed in it. It's got split air, stuff like that.
Okay.
We have some pictures of it if you wanted to see them, but I don't know if that's appropriate or not, of what we're trying to do.
We do have some pictures. Part of Wildfire Adaptive Partnership was a wildfire mitigation plan, but obviously they just do that from our GIS map for an aerial view. There's 5 or 6 pictures there. You'll have to scroll to make them larger, Travis, but Mr. Yeomans has gone in and cleared all the underbrush of everything in and around the site.
Mm-hmm.
And I recommended, when I talked to Brian yesterday, that they get a hold of Mancos Fire to come and evaluate what fire mitigation they would like to see and the exact location of each of those units, because that's where you would mitigate to a higher degree than just clear cut the whole property.
Correct. Within typically 100 and
Yeah, but he's
200-300 feet around
he's
there.
cleared all the underbrush and cut some trees out and allowed for parking there just off of 43.
They'll be walking into the sites. They won't be driving to them.
Yeah. From that parking area?
Yeah. It's, I don't know, about 80 by 80, something like that. 30 feet coming off the county road right now. If they want it wider, I took a fence out, I can make it wider.
Okay. All right, is that everything?
The secondary egress out of that area would be to the southeast to his pasture cleared area there where the arena is. So if there should be a fire between the vehicles and the campsites, they would just go southeast and head to the arena area and get over to the main house and out of there.
So that, I mean, really, there's access out anywhere.
Yeah.
Looking
They can
at
go
it,
north
it's-
and jump in the lake if
Yeah,
they need
I
to.
mean, worst case
There's a few
scenario.
ways out of there.
Yeah, pretty open,
Yes.
or you can get through it.
And
Commissioners.
CDOT recommended no upgrades or anything for access on 43 to Highway 160. They deemed that it probably did not account for a 20% or more increase. So they didn't look to have any requirements there.
Commissioners, do you have any questions before I open this up for public comment?
Planning and zoning's recommendation?
They recommended it for approval. It was a 5-1 vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Copenhaver?
So is this creating 2 parcels out of the one address, the 10008?
Can you load up the other
You see what I mean?
drawing? And I
Yeah,
think
shows
it
2,
depicts
1, 0, 8, and 1, 0,
the envelope.
9, 10.
Is that the envelope, Brian?
Yeah, it's 2
Yeah,
addresses,
Or is it that other? Yeah, that's
but I
it.
think they're all on the one.
Well, it's under that one address. It looks like there's 2 parcels.
Oh, yeah.
After this is created? Is that what it's going to be?
I think the 2 parcels exist. The 2 parcels exist currently, Don.
It's actually 3 parcels.
3 parcels.
Go ahead, Brian. You can explain it a little
Oh,
better.
in the southwest there, that square in the southwest closer to the highway, that's an existing 3-acre parcel. And then what's going to be used as the glamping area and recreation for the glamping is that longer piece along the highway there, 29 acres, I believe. And that's what's being created for the glamping.
Yeah, so that whole envelope covers those ponds, and they can do hiking trails there. If you'll look between the big pond on the left and the 3 smaller ponds, the heavy black line there, that's a property boundary line, a property line. So that's why it covers part of those 2 larger parcels plus the 3-acre square.
This doesn't really play into what we're looking at, but that little triangle piece there across the highway, is that,
That's part of the bigger property with the house and that big pond.
okay,
That's another deal.
yeah.
That's
That across from the highway is, you can't even access it.
No.
It's on that hillside, and when the highway went through there, they just split that property, and I think there's, 3 acres or something like that on that hillside there.
Okay,
That belongs to the Robbins Family Ranch.
Yeah. And that will not be included in that envelope.
okay.
Nor will the triangle between 160 and 43 down there. That's a separate parcel.
Does that answer it, Commissioner? We're not creating new parcels. The
Correct.
addresses are still gonna be the same of 10 and 8.
It's just the PUD will have its own legal description and perimeter that this operation would be permitted to operate on.
Okay. All right. No other questions at this point in time. I'm gonna open this
Real quick,
application.
so Don, the properties that this envelope's gonna be on, it's this 9900 Road 43. That's zoned AR 3 through 9. And then we've got, where else, what are the other properties it crosses? Does it cross both these?
Both of those bigger too.
And both of those bigger 2 are zoned
AR 35 plus.
AR 35 plus? Okay.
Okay. I will now open this application up for public comment. Those wishing to speak for or against this application, please come forward to the podium. State your name and address for the record prior to providing your comments, and you may address the board at this time.
Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Clerk, and board members. My name is Mike Lynch, and I reside at 21730 Road S, Cortez. I am giving comment this morning as a member of the public and a citizen of Montezuma County. However, in the interest of full disclosure to any public viewing this, I'm also a commissioner on the County Planning and Zoning Board, which heard and voted on the merits of this application on March 14th of this year. I want to stress what I'm saying this morning is definitely my opinion, not fact or anything until it's proven that way. So as my opinion, first I'd like to say that I support farmers and ranchers finding legal and legitimate ways to bring in additional income with their acreages. Second, I'm not opposed to the applicant's idea for a glamping campground. However, I am against the approval of these permits because I hold the opinion that they do not conform to the letter or the intent of the land use code. My understanding of the land use code is that all applications, whether for zoning or for permits, apply to whole parcels of land. For zoning, it's easy to see. A zoning application applies to a complete parcel based on its size, location, and intended use. Permits are less obvious because they typically consider work or development or activity that will occur on some percentage of the parcel, up to 100% obviously, but usually less than 100% of the parcel. The permits apply to the entire parcel, even though the permitted use is possibly involving only a fraction of the parcel. In this applicant's high-impact special use permits, in paragraph 3, the number of lots says it is for one permitted envelope. In my understanding, there is no such thing as a permitted envelope in the land use code. The word envelope is used only once in the land use code, if I'm not mistaken. And in that case, it's describing an acceptable area for the footprint of a building to be placed when it is built on a particular lot. The permitted envelope in these HIPSUP applications has been applied to 3 adjoining parcels on adjoining fractions of each parcel. The arrangement is not found in the land use code, to my understanding. Additionally, in my opinion, the special use permit is misapplied here. This campground is not a retreat and it's not a guest ranch. It's a campground. Campgrounds are covered under high impact permits. My suggestion would be divide each of the 2 larger parcels into 2 smaller parcels each, one that covers the campground area and another for the remainder. Rezone all 4 of them according to their size and use. The 2 new parcels for camping should be zoned commercial. A high impact permit will be required. A special use permit and a planned unit development may not be required and could possibly be dropped. Again, these are just my opinions. Thank you for your time, and I wish the applicants success on their property.
All right, thank you. Next.
Good morning, Alan Mays, 21693 County Road 21 in Lewis. I had the question before the previous commenter, but is this property being changed from one land use to another? Was this ag land and now being changed to commercial? I'm not clear on that, and that's my only question. I'm not opposed to the improvements. I just need clarification of if the land use is being changed from ag to commercial. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. All right. Seeing no further comment, I'll close the public comment session of this application. And now I will bring it back to the commissioners.
So just to clarify real quick, on the title there, that has been revised and took commercial out. It's a general planned unit development. Initially, when we were looking at it, it was, that's back from, I think, December or January.
Say one more time, what?
So up on the top, it says where it says Tumble and Tea,
Oh,
commercial.
glamping,
What
yeah.
what we're
Yeah.
looking at in the description that we have that was presented to us was a general planned unit development.
Yep.
Correct.
So we have a GPUD is what we're looking
It just
at.
says, yep, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I just
Sure.
wanted to clear that up on the screen.
The plat's been revised, but, yeah, commercial is out of there. And general, replaced with general.
So
Here's the problem I see with this whole thing. This planned unit development is being used for commercial uses. And when you look at the zoning, and the purpose of the different zoning designations, I mean, take for instance, the zoning for AR 35 plus. The purpose of that zone is to protect primary and accessory uses, allow for special uses, and allow for up to 3 cluster lots with home sites. But it doesn't contemplate a commercial campground. That's what this is. And so what we're doing here is we're using a planned unit development to circumvent zoning. It's similar to some of these other applications that we've seen. So we've got a commercial use happening on AR property, and the intent of AR property is agricultural residential use. Now there's this conditional use for a general plan unit development, but I think when you look at the intent of the land use code, that conditional use wasn't meant to supersede the primary use of agricultural residential. And so that's the problem I think you get into here. Mm-hmm. You're sticking a commercial use down on AR zoned property. That would be my concern.
Okay.
Um,
Question.
Quite a list of neighbors. Any letters of opposition, anything like that?
No word at all from anybody? And the general plan unit development is for both residential and business combinations. Now, I understand there may be a technicality or question on zoning, but there is not going to be any infrastructure on the AR 35 plus properties. Those are basically hiking, biking, swimming uses, which
But
I
the
see
smaller
it as a-
property's not zoned commercial, correct?
correct.
And I
It
think,
has a house on it and the bath, shower house, septic system.
and I think therein lies your problem. You've got a property that's being used for commercial uses predominantly, that's zoned agricultural residential. I think that's the crux of it. And I don't think that the conditional use of a general plan unit development was meant to supersede zoning. And that's my concern here. If you allow this to happen, you're gonna have commercial uses disguised as general
AR339.
planned unit developments all over the unincorporated AR zone part of the county.
But isn't that the intention of a high-impact special use permit?
That's
But-
part of
because
it.
Because it can be revoked.
That's part of it. But there's still this fundamental problem you've got where you're setting a commercial use down on an AR zoned property.
So, since it's right along the highway corridor, to change the AR there to a commercial use, is that cleaner? To change that?
I mean, I think that would be a question that would have to come before you in a different permit. I mean, I look
Sure,
at the
I
zone, I
understand
look at the
that.
zoning map, there's no commercial zone properties that I can see along this highway corridor. Now, does that mean that there couldn't be one? No, but I don't know. I
And
don't.
that
I
is
think
why
that's-
we didn't recommend that, because we've been through this scenario before, and we were told that it's not likely any properties outside in the middle of ag land would be approved for commercial zoning. We're still back to, is a rental house commercial? If it is, we need to just zone the whole county commercial. Everybody's renting everything out, short-term rentals, thousands of them, and that can't be the definition. Or just change the zoning on everything and we can start applying for residential use. Because everybody in this county is renting something.
All right, well,
I mean, at some point they quit renting it and a grandson buys that house, it's no longer a rental. It's a residential house on AR 3 to 9 property.
well, it's my understanding that even though it's rented, it's still a residential property. So it's creating a residential purpose, so it's not necessarily commercial. So I would kind of argue that point with you, but I understand where you're coming from, but
Right.
I would argue that point, that because you're renting a house, it's still residential, because that's what it's being used for, not necessarily commercial.
No.
This is commercial. This is going to be rented to anybody who books, is what I'm assuming. Sure. Could be in town, out of town, wherever. It is a commercial application where, they're gonna change probably weekly, daily, I don't know, monthly, whatever the case may be, which puts it more to a commercial use.
So,
And that's the point of the general planned unit development, is
Correct.
the combination of two operations.
if a landowner is on AR 35 plus and he leases his property to a guy that's, let's say, farming agricultural hay, alfalfa, grass, whatever, and he's selling it off that land, does that make that land commercial?
Every productive farm that's selling is commercial.
My point.
If you don't consume it and sell it, then you're
Mhm.
running a business.
the definition of commercial is laid out very differently in our land use code. I mean, there's a specific definition that encompasses commercial use, and that doesn't include selling hay. I mean, that's not
So-
listed in the, I mean, I can pull up the commercial use definition and,
In the term selling hay, the
But-
key word is selling.
I mean,
And I'm not trying to say, we should commercialize every piece of agricultural ground out there. It's not the intention by any means.
Nope, we can't have
I mean,
it
I
both
think
ways.
there's,
No.
I
And
mean-
I still go back to the concept of the high impact permit, and that can be revoked.
And the special use permit is required
Yes.
with a PUD, and this could be easily defined as a guest ranch or retreat. And when everything decides to close, the wagons are pulled off and the platforms are gone, and it's still the
Goes
way
back
it
to
was.
its- Goes back to its
AR.
original intent. Commissioner, do you have anything else to add?
I mean, personally, I would just assume that, where it's right along the highway like that, I don't think we should be having issues about making stuff right along that highway commercial. I don't think we should be having those issues, personally, where it's right along the highway like that, because that's where they're gonna be able to access this. I don't think putting something like this out in the middle of a residential area is a whole different thing than right along that highway. I don't
Which I think is why you went this route as a GPUD instead of trying to make a commercial zone. That's
And
kinda
it
what you
is,
described,
it is
so.
literally a quarter mile past the commercial industrial overlay zone out of Mancos.
I guess the question
then is,
that raises though
are we
is
following
it
the
better
land use
to
code?
get a commercial zone there? I mean, is a commercial zone appropriate along that highway corridor? And that's not
Not
what's
for
before
80.
you right now.
No.
I wouldn't recommend it for 80 acres. Or I'm having to subdivide. That's, the PUD does allow to transfer across property lines as well as the high impact permit allows to encompass all or part of other parcels.
So,
I guess my only question would be, and I think this is really what you guys have to answer. If you're looking at an AR 35 plus zoned property, the purposes are, the primary purpose is to protect the primary and accessory agricultural uses as defined in the land use code. To allow for special uses as defined by 3306.4, we'll get there in a second. Allow for the development of up to 3 clustered homes as home sites per 35 acres. Any cluster development shall not exceed 2 residential units per 35 acre increment. And so there's not going to be any camping sites on that parcel, correct?
Right, and this is not a cluster incentive PUD.
And so then you get into the small-scale agricultural and residential uses. The uses by right: agriculture, agricultural accessory; residential, residential accessory; conditional uses: plan unit developments and a general plan unit development, and a special use permit. And then there's a series of threshold standards. And so what it really gets into is, what was the intent of the code here? Because obviously a conditional use is a general plan unit development on AR 3 through 9 property. I think the problem is, was this the sort of general plan unit development that was envisioned on AR property when the primary use is supposed to be agricultural? That's really the question. And that's the question that you guys have to answer, and you have to explain why you're making that decision, why you think either no, the general plan unit development was not intended to be used in this way on AR 3 through 9 property, or yes, it should be applicable here and here's why. And that's the record that you got to create.
All right. Clear as mud, right?
Yeah.
Everything in this land use code is clear as mud. But if you read that the way that description reads, I mean, arguably, I think that, I mean, right along this highway corridor, we are talking about a large piece of property, but the small piece of property is being used for an actual commercial application. But that's the place to keep commercial applications, is right along the highway corridors, which is where they're supposed to be. Like Commissioner Copenhaver said, not planted out in the middle of, you know, the county. So does it comply or does it not comply is the question, I think, and that's what you're putting to us. Does it or does it not comply with the land use code or the intent of the land use code? And so is all we're looking at today is a general planned unit development. So does it or does it not comply? That's really the only question that we have to answer, because that's all that's in front of us.
Right.
Well, and certainly in favor of the fact that it complies is that a general plan unit development is a conditional use on these properties as they're zoned. So that would be in favor of it complying. I think on the flip side, the issue you have is that you have a commercial use in an agricultural zone property.
Yep.
And so that's the flip side of this. If the purpose of AR zoning is to protect agricultural uses, are you doing that right here by allowing this general plan unit development to sit on this property? So that's the two sides of the coin.
And in that regards, I would have to say, no, it doesn't, because it is an AR property. It's not a commercial property, it's an AR property. I don't know. But I also get it too, it's right on the highway.
Mr. McLaughlin, you want to share that with the commission? It might be helpful.
Sure. I was just considering that the intent of this whole thing is to perpetuate the agriculture of the remaining Robbins Ranch properties. The, costs of ranching and everything else, it's to augment that. And so my opinion, humbly, is that this is all for the benefit of the agricultural purpose.
I seen my in-laws sell property 4 different times to be able to keep that property intact. And on the 4 different times they sold that property, 31 houses have got built on that property of the Robbins Ranch. So my wife, on her parents' deathbeds, promised that she'd keep it as a ranch and we wouldn't subdivide it and put a bunch more houses, tax the roads more, stuff like that. So both of us want to kind of semi-retire a little bit, still run the ranch, but we're trying to figure out how we can make income to support the ranch. We had one time ran a couple hundred head of cows. We had permits. We tried that. 2 years in a row, when we had the drought, we spent over $100,000 in hay. So that didn't help and work. So we cut our herd down to about 35 head, and that's what we're running on the place. We got about 25 horses, which is 5 too many. And so we're hoping that this would subsidize the ranch. And I don't know, from commercial to what it is, I don't know if we need to go back and change it and change the AR-35 to something else, or what we got to do to be able to make this work.
Correct, and I understand that specifically. But what we're looking at is I don't think anybody is against making anything work. The issue is, I think that what the attorney brings in front of us is, does it comply or does it not comply with the land use
Correct.
code? So if we're to protect, if this was a commercial piece of property, zoned commercial, I think it would be super easy to just say it's a commercial piece of property. Are there any adverse impacts? Well, it doesn't sound like there are any adverse impacts at all. And it is right off of the highway. However, does it necessarily comply with the way the land use code is written and protecting this is zoned AR, which is agriculture. Now, I understand that you're trying to help augment, the ranch and the agricultural portion of it, but
even on that property, we still have animals that go on there. And we have fenced off right where we want to do this proposed glamping. But by that big pond, we have horses there, we'll have cows there. It's still, utilized as agricultural. And then we got the arena that, they come in there every so often and, have different little rodeos and stuff like that.
And I think that's why it's a conditional use to allow a general plan unit development. It's a specific plan on a specific legally described part of the property without everything having to be all or nothing of any parcel.
do you want to make a decision today? Do you want to wait? What's your
Humble most opinion is that the AR will always be there, unless it's changed by rezoning the whole thing. We're just adding a layer with a high impact permit, special use permit. So I think if this does go away, it just reverts back to the AR. And so I would propose that we accept, I would move that we accept the high impact special use permit and general plan unit development application submitted by the Robbins Family Ranches, agent Brian McLaughlin, at property located at 9900, 10010, and 10008 Road 43, Mancos. Now, whether it gets a second or not, I don't have.
Well, there's still discussion to go on.
Yeah.
So, not that we have, or we haven't done anything yet, so.
This is a hard thing because I know what situation Don and them are in. A lot of ranchers or farmers are in that same situation as far as trying to find some other source of income to support their agriculture properties. It always makes it hard, but there is so much pressure to try to keep these places intact. I think anything we can do to help in that situation is a good thing, instead of seeing all these houses like Don's talking about. I mean, I know what he's talking about. I worked for Eddie Robbins for years on this place, and I know that may not exactly fit with all of our stuff in our land use code, but I think this type of situation where it can still go, I know these places are still going to be used for ag uses, because all around those ponds and everything else, they graze all this. All this land is still used for agriculture, plus what they're doing to supplement it. And I think in my mind, it can still fit with what we're doing here. And so I would second the motion.
Okay.
And the reason I do that is because it's still gonna be used for ag use.
Well,
All this
it-
whole
it-
area is.
It can be revoked, and if you decide to change it at some point in time, it
You
will
can
revert
withdraw.
back to just a total agricultural area.
It's always gonna be, like Gerald says, it's always gonna be with animals on it and stuff. That's the whole intent of what we're trying to do, just to
Sure,
supplement
and
the ranch.
trust me, I get the intent, I know exactly what you're trying to do. Where I get hung up on is the land use code and the intent of the land use code and the way the language is actually written in the land use code, because it's a simple question, is does it or does it not comply? And that's where it's gray, because now we have a GPUD in front of us.
And so just,
And it's-
not to interrupt, Commissioner, but now we've got a motion and a second.
Yep.
And
We're
so I
still
think there's just a couple things for the record that will be helpful for you guys to find. For the high impact permit, you've got to find that the proposed use is in conformity with the code, that the proposed use shall not generate any significant adverse impacts on other property in the area, consistent with the code, that public utilities and services are available or could be made available to support the uses consistent with the proposed permit, and then obviously the validity of the permit is contingent on continued compliance. And so those are the findings that you guys need to make. Basically, conformity with the code, no significant adverse impacts, and then that the utilities and services are available.
And just to confirm, they do have a water tap already, and Mancos Rural Water has plenty of water access, pressure at that location.
So with that, obviously, I think we've already talked about the continued compliance with the code. If it does come out of compliance, we can at that point in time revoke it, which we have revoked permits before. We've taken them away. I see no adverse impact. The septic systems are already there and they're functioning properly. The utilities are available. You just stated that you have plenty of what you need. And so I guess I've got 3 out of 4 as far as the compliance with the code, because I think that's a little bit gray. However, that's all I have. So it has been moved and seconded.
And
to
then one more
accept-
thing, that was for the high impact permit. Now we've got to go through the
Right.
findings for the planned unit development. And so your findings of fact for the planned unit development, the proposed planned unit development is in conformity with the code. So the same thing we just talked about, but this is again in the context of the planned unit development, not the high impact permit. The PUD shall minimize significant adverse impacts on other property in the area. The PUD provides access routes in compliance with the Montezuma County road specifications and of adequate design to accommodate traffic and volume generated by the proposed use, and then that public utilities are available or can be made available to support the uses. I think, Don, you talked about the traffic, and maybe if you just make a quick record as to that the roads are sufficient to support the traffic.
Correct. CDOT had no issues with any increased traffic at Road 43 and the highway, or with them using that proposed parking lot area. And Mr. Yeoman's Robbins Ranches, they will comply with Road and Bridge as far as any upgrades more than the 30-foot wide access they've already created.
So then also too, for the GPUD, obviously, to comply with the road standards, which I think that's already been met and/or will be met, if there's anything that needs to be altered, but it sounds like it's current. The utilities, again, are available or can be made available. And to minimize any adverse impact, which we obviously, when we think about that, we think about septic systems or something that would be adverse to public health, which there is none at this point in time. So as far as the high impact permit and the GPUD, I think we meet most of the criteria around that. So with that, it has been moved and seconded, and I think that I've displayed that properly to accept the proposed high-impact special use permit and general planned unit development on property located at 9900 10010 and 10008 Road 43, Mancos, Colorado.
And so-
Consisting of 32 acres, more or less.
Sorry, I didn't know you had more on the address. Before you guys
Okay, I got them
vote,
all.
just for clarity in the record, I mean, it has to comply with all these things. And so a yes vote is saying, yes, it complies. It can't comply with some of them. And so if you're gonna vote yes, it's gotta comply with all of them. And I'm not saying it doesn't, I'm just saying, for purposes of record, you don't wanna be in a situation where it's like, oh, I think it complies with all of them, and I'm gonna vote yes, because then that vote gets brought into question, if that makes sense. Okay.
And I think I think I could say properly that of the four that were laid out on each, the high impact permit and the general planned unit development, two separate permits, those were the four in question for each one, correct, gentlemen?
Yeah.
All right, I think I got it all in there. I hope. So with that, then I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Okay, it passes, sir. You are good to go.
Thank you.
Yep. And I will close this public hearing.
Did you bring the sign?
I did, it's in my truck.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I almost forgot about it. That might have been back there for a month.
Right? No, thanks, guys.
Anything else, Doc?
That's all we have on our agenda.
Okay, very good.
You piece of junk.
What happened? All right, with that, we'll go into public comment of the regular session. So the Board of County Commissioners welcomes you to this meeting. Person speaking during public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, or depending on the number of people wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all the members of the public the opportunity to address the board. When addressing the board, please state your name and address for the record prior to providing your comments. And comments to individual supervisors or staff are not permitted, and participants may not yield their time to others. And with that, the public comment session is open. Are you good to go?
No. This thing hates me.
Good morning again. My name is Alan Mays, 21693 County Road 21 in Lewis. I just listened to a decision by the county commissioners that I'm not totally 100% pleased with. I think I've seen things where the Experience the West, Old Tucson comes to mind, areas like that. Because it's along the highway, doesn't make it a need for a development such as this. I like seeing ag in our area, and I think being along the highway, that's what we need to be thinking about in our rural area. I don't have a problem with someone making money off of their land. I don't agree that everything is being leased. Everyone is leasing something to people living on the land, and I don't agree with ag being a commercial business. Ag is ag, and so I'm not happy with the decision that was made today. But to that extent, my reason for being here is the workshop yesterday, clarity on the social services proposal or presentation, I guess, on selling of funds that they received. That's the word that's used in the agenda item, and I don't know what that means. If the county social services received money from the state that they didn't need, then maybe the state needs to decide where that money goes. But for the social services of Montezuma County to sell to Logan County, are they receiving funds that they can then put into their general fund? if they're selling the monies that they receive from the state. So I need clarity on that one. So when you come to that discussion and decision today, I'd like to hear a little bit more of why that word selling is being used on that item. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next. All right. Seeing no others, we'll close the public comment session of this meeting, and we will bring it back to our regularly scheduled agenda, which is going into unfinished business. First thing is the decision and possible signature of the Omnibus Memorandum of Understanding. This was presented to us, I think, 3 weeks ago by our emergency manager. We did have a lot of discussion. I think it was presented that we already do this currently, and that this doesn't really highlight anything one way or another of why we should or shouldn't have this, other than specifically stating that we have the potential and opportunity to charge for services to these other organizations. Is that correct, Travis? So with that, gentlemen, this is brought back in front of us again. We can make a decision to approve or to deny this. And I think, unless there's anything else you want to add, I think I've pretty much stated it.
Pretty much beat this up. Go ahead. Whichever way you want to go.
That's all right. I already said what I thought about this whole deal, so. I move that we sign this ominous mutual aid agreement between Montezuma County and the political subdivisions, a political subdivision of the state of Colorado, town of Dolores, town of Mancos, and city of Cortez.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to sign the Omnibus Mutual Aid Agreement between the town of Dolores, town of Mancos, city of Cortez. As presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I think this takes all of this. No? Maybe not. All right. Now we have a decision as it's related to the purchase of a van for MoCo, which was also presented to us yesterday. Here's a couple pictures of it. If anybody's interested, you can come and grab them here off of our table. And this is the one that we've been talking about for a long period of time. We do have, I think she said, 3 of them on the ground, available and in stock at this point in time. Did I miss anything?
No.
So,
I would so move we purchase the new van for MoCo from, who is it? It's a 2023 Mobility Trans 350 EL from Davy, is it Davy Motors?
I think so, but
Okay,
I don't
yeah.
have that in front of me.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept and purchase the van for MoCo Transportation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next, yesterday we had a discussion and a presentation that came to us from Emily Lockhart, our CSU agent, as far as a Fair Board CSU Extension Memorandum of Understanding. This one has been taken care of back and forth between the attorneys, our attorney CSU, and now it's ready to be signed. Ian, do you have anything to add on this?
I don't have anything to add. I think this is a great document. I think it outlines some responsibilities for both of these entities. I think there was some confusion, and so this is a good thing, and I think it'll clear a lot of things up.
I move to sign, accept this memorandum of understanding between Montezuma County Fair Board and the Board of Governors of Colorado State University System, acting as CSU, for the benefit of Montezuma County CSU Extension Office.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to sign the memorandum of understanding between the Montezuma County Fair Board and the Board of Governors of the Colorado State University Systems, acting by and through Colorado State University for the benefit of its Montezuma County CSU Extension Office. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Travis, I'm going to go by the next one for just a minute. Were you able to get a hold of Kelly?
We're trying to get a hold of her now.
Okay. So I'm going to move by that one, and I'm going to go down to the jail-based behavioral health service grant. We had already approved this application submission form. It was presented yesterday that we would be getting a DocuSign, which I have not yet received, but we have to have it in front of the commissioners to accept that prior to me signing it whenever I get it. So, any further questions on this one?
I would so move that we approve the signing of the document by the chairman for the jail-based behavioral health services grant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to sign the jail-based behavioral health services grant contract by the chairman as received in DocuSign when available. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we also hopefully can put this to bed today. We've been dealing with our fairgrounds suppression system for 3 years, 4 years.
Since I was here.
A long point in time, and it seems like we continue to get nowhere with this. We did have 3 plans available to us from the basically suppression company and the Division of Fire Protection and Control, or after conversation with our attorney, we actually have 3 other plans that we can move forward with. So, gentlemen, at this point in time, what's your pleasure?
I would so move we DC the connection out there for the arena. We don't have the water flow, and to get the water flow necessary to protect the arena out there, an $85,000 bill is pretty tough to take when we're not using any water.
Second. Do we need something on the rest of it?
Yeah, the rest of the system will remain intact.
It will remain, and it is serviced right now. The east side of the building is supplied for the sprinkler system, the suppression system. The only thing I'd like to add to that is that we will continue anytime we have a show out there, whether it's the ag show, the gun show, the home and garden show, specifically the big shows, there will be a mandatory fire watch that has to stay in place, which is somebody that will cover that for the entire time that is functioning out there in case of that fire suppression is needed. However, this is only DCing the system that is over the arena, which is dirt. There is no flammables. There are combustibles that are stored through those shows. Anyway, it has been moved and seconded to DC the suppression system over the arena at the fairgrounds and leave the suppression system that currently exists over the east side of the structure. All those in.
As a note, that system hasn't worked since it was put in.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next, we have a decision regarding the Cabin and Ferris Campground Maintenance Contract. We looked at this last year. These are we discontinued one last year because the Forest Service got rid of an asset down there. These are two campgrounds actually that just barely reside in Montezuma County. Dolores County cooperates with us. They basically take care of them, but we will no longer be sharing that responsibility there for the weed program, but we have to give them 60 days of notification for the termination. So with that,
I move we sign this letter to the Dolores County Commissioners in regards to the Cabin and Ferris Campground Maintenance, IGA.
Second.
been moved and seconded to sign and send to the Dolores County Commissioners the withdrawal and termination of maintenance down at the Ferris Canyon Campground. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I see Miss Kelly came in. Kelly, would you come down here and give us just a little bit more understanding of the temporary assistance selling off of the TANF funds that we currently do not, that we're looking at Logan County. So if you could just go through that again one more time.
Yeah. So I submitted yesterday, or the day before, the 3 budgets. So when we look at our child welfare allocation, our TANF allocation, and the Colorado Works child welfare allocation, and our admin. So those are the 3 funding pools that we use to fund all of child welfare. And so when we look, the reason I brought them was so that you could see how spent we are. So we're underspent in all 3 of those categories, core included. And so that doesn't mean a whole lot, but when we look at Colorado Works, the TANF in and of itself is we get an allocation and we have to pay our maintenance of effort on that allocation no matter what. And that's our 15%. So we have to put in 15% to get that allocation. If we don't spend it, it gets reverted to help everybody else become whole after the year. And so when I'm thinking about selling our TANF, that means somebody will cover the mow, the maintenance of effort, for however much money we give them. So if we sell our TANF, we get to get some of our mow back because we didn't spend our full allocation. So for this $70,000 transfer, we'd get $10,500 from Logan County for buying that. And the reason I think it's a good idea is for a couple reasons. Number one, I don't expect us to overspend in our child welfare allocation or our core allocation or our TANF. Worst case scenario, if we overspent our TANF, which I do not predict, and we're still going to have a $22,000 buffer, our child welfare allocation and our core allocation will cover. And we're not going to be overspent. We're at 56% for one and 36% for the other, so they're vastly underspent. And so it seems an appropriate strategy for us to recoup some of our mow on that money versus it going back to the state to make others whole. And often when we say that, the most overspent counties are the Big 11, and so it'll go back to the Big 11 to make them whole. Along with our TANF, we have a TANF reserve. We can only hold 40% of an allocation from year to year in that reserve. Our reserves are full. We can't carry over any of our TANF from year to year. And so ultimately, that's my predictions. We're spending about $60,000 a month in TANF now, based on our spending from July 1 to current. If we sell $70,000, we'll still have $22,000 in excess, planning for any emergencies or things that could potentially come up before the end of the year.
So basically, just a quick synopsis is we have enough. Our reserves are full, and we will get back basically the $10,000 of our mow, and this will go to Logan County and their Department of Social Services for TANF. It would not go into a general fund.
No.
So it would specifically stay within the child welfare
Yes.
in Logan County. So any other questions, gentlemen?
No.
Okay.
And what will happen, just so that you know, is Logan County's commissioners, along with their director, will submit a letter to you, and you don't have to take any action on it. It's just so that you're aware that we've agreed to sell 70,000, and then that'll go to the Child Welfare or Colorado Works Allocation Committee for finalized approval.
So if we don't do this and it reverts back, do we lose our 15%?
Yeah,
Correct.
we paid it up
I
front.
just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
everybody understands that.
So we would recoup nothing of our mow.
yeah,
It
we
would
would
just-
recoup
It
nothing.
would just be in there, go away, and our reserves are full for the TANF.
Yes.
So,
I would so move we approve the, I guess for the lack of better terms, selling temporary assistance for needy families to Logan County.
Second.
So moved and seconded to sell off our temporary assistance for needy families, TANF, to Logan County. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. All right, new business. We have a special event liquor permit for the Ute Mountain Ute Rodeo. With that, Ms. Frizzell, would you come on down?
And Lacey's here from the Ute Mountain Rodeo too.
Aye.
Hey.
You want to speak first? Or? Okay. So my name is Jerry Frizzell. I do the special event permits and liquor license for Montezuma County. I have one here today for the Ute Mountain Rodeo, Ute Mountain Roundup, and it's going to be located at 30100 Highway 160 in Cortez for the days of June 6th, June 7th, June 8th from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. They have complied with everything. I have a letter from the sheriff's office where they will have the security out there, and I have the letter from the fairgrounds saying they have permission to use their facility for those days. Lacey, you want to add anything at all?
No, the only thing that we changed we did this, done it a few times with you guys, but we changed two things this year.
Lacey, can I get you to turn that on and pull that really close to your mouth? Otherwise,
Is that
it doesn't come through.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. When we did this a few years ago, we had a concert up in the main barn up top. And so our liquor license went all the way up top. And so we had not changed it. We went ahead and modified that this year and pulled it down to where it's just covering the arena and the area behind it. So we're doing the concerts again inside the gated area. But we discussed with Sheriff Nowlin, we're going to get extra officers out there this year so that they're doing more of the gate manning than just volunteers. And then I think they're actually going to take over the road security and highway, whatever, instead of, I think the state patrol did it last year. So the county sheriffs will be doing it this year.
Okay,
I'm good.
all right.
I move to approve this application for a special events permit for the Ute Mountain Roundup to be held at the Montezuma County Fairgrounds on 6th, 7th, and 8th of June.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the application for a special events permit for the Ute Mountain Roundup for the rodeo for June 6th, 7th, and 8th. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, you're good to go. Is there a, oh, okay. All right. There you go.
Jerry.
With that, we'll jump into our attorney's report. Ian?
Last week, we filed a response to Ironwood's motion to reconsider fines. That was filed last Friday, and so that's in, and now we'll await their reply. They have 7 days to write a reply, and then at that point, the court will issue a decision on that motion to reconsider fines. I did send the motion over to you guys, but in essence, we argued a couple things. We argued that because the fines were stipulated to in the stipulated injunction, that it's not appropriate to undo them at this point in time for various legal reasons. We argued that the overall condition of the pile has not changed significantly since the judge's last order, and therefore the order should be left in place for the fines. And then we argued that there's still a significant fire danger that renders the fines proportional to the danger that's been created. And so that was the county's argument. We'll await Ironwood's reply and the court's decision. In the meantime, like I reported last week, we did obtain the judgment for nearly $300,000 against Ironwood. CDPHE's was for just over $300,000, and those fines continue to accrue at this point in time. And so at this point, we'll await the judge's order on that. I conducted a planning and zoning training last week with our planning and zoning commissioners. I thought that went well. I think that was a helpful thing, and we'll schedule more of those in the future, possibly every quarter. We talked about a variety of things, ethical considerations for them. We talked a lot about quasi-judicial bodies and the duties of quasi-judicial decision makers and what you can and can't do before a public hearing. And then we closed with speaking a little bit about making a record and how you go about doing that. We didn't get all the way through that, and so we'll finish that component at a later date. But I think it was a helpful training. I hope it was a helpful training, and so that was a positive. I've been working very hard with the Cortez Fire Protection District's attorney to get the CIP contract finalized. We're very, very close to being there. And we should have that on the agenda for next week. I think that there was a bit of a misunderstanding about how the funds for the CIP program were allocated, and I think that Cortez Fire was not clear that the funding was coming from a grant source rather than the general fund. And so some of the changes that they made in the contract were contemplating that if there were over provisions of services, that would be backfilled by the general fund. I explained that was not the intent of the CIP program, not the intent of the contract. Ultimately, it's a capped amount. Cortez Fire has to make sure they're operating within that capped amount. And if they don't, quite frankly, they would be in breach of the contract. And so I think we've got that all squared away, and hopefully we'll have that in front of you for signature next week. Just talked to their attorney again last night, and we're real close. So certainly positive note on that, news on that front. Travis sent the sales tax resolution to the Department of Revenue. That came back with a few comments. I think most of the comments are pretty easily remedied. There was one little piece that, it's easily adjustable. There was a question about Tabor, and so I've got an email up to the Department of Revenue to try to get some clarification on what they were saying in regards to that, and hopefully we can get that clarification and we're good to go for getting that signed next week. Other than that, I don't have anything to report.
All right, thank you. Travis?
First is just a house cleaning amendment number 2 for MGT. They do our cost allocation, and for fiscal year it's going to be $56.50 for 23. And they do our cost allocation, and this is just an amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2 or amendment number 1?
Number 2.
This is, so I looked this over. The original contract was signed, I believe, back in 2021, and then it had an amendment number 1, just extended the contractual terms, and this is amendment number 2. And so the way this happens is this comes up every year because it's in year increments. The only difference between this contract and the contract you guys previously signed is a small increase in cost. I believe it was about $150.
Roughly, yes.
Yep, and so that's what this is, and that's why it's amendment number 2, because this is the second period we've had to amend it.
I would so move, we sign the master engagement agreement between Montezuma County and MGT in the amount of, this is amendment number 2, in the amount of $16,750.
And so actually, this $16,000, it's worded strange here. This is the total amount that's been paid so far.
Yeah,
The amount that's being paid for this upcoming year
okay.
is $56.50.
Do I need to revise the motion?
I would just revise it to indicate that this amendment is approving a contract for the next fiscal year, $56.50.
Okay.
And what it's saying is it's just amending it because we've paid out $11,100 so far pursuant to the contract. Now we're just adding another $56.50 for an additional year, if that makes sense.
Would amend the motion to read $5,650 instead of $16,750.
Yep.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to sign the master engagement agreement, amendment number 2, in the value of $5,650. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Is that it, Travis?
Just a couple things. Again, Ian's indicated the sales tax information went up to the Department of Revenue. Hopefully we'll get that addressed fairly soon. Done some follow-up with IT on the House Bill 211110, the accessibility, digital accessibility law that's coming into play July 1st. A lot of discussions over the week regarding the NCA. Phone calls and emails back and forth. Had a good conversation, I believe, yesterday with the commissioners in Dolores County. I'll let the commissioners discuss that. And then Thursday and Friday, all day CCI Zoom on legislation. So I'll let Commissioner Candelaria take the lead on that one.
All right. Commissioner Lindsay.
Not much to report. I did attend the city council meeting last Tuesday, and they were pretty brief, not anything really, shouldn't say worth mentioning, but they did some little bit of business. But other than that, we went yesterday out to Dolores County to meet with the commissioners out there, and I'll let Commissioner Candelaria delve into that.
Commissioner Lindsay. Or I mean, Commissioner Copenhaver. You want me to dive now?
Let him dive.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go with Gerald.
Last week I had a meeting with Southwest Water Conservation District all day on Wednesday. We got into some fairly significant discussion about whether they should file a letter of opposition to Dolores Water Conservancy District's filing to change a large percent of their 505 water right to an absolute right from a conditional right. It's a direct flow right that was given up by MVI to DWCD when they built the project. They're trying to make that an absolute right. It's a pre-compact right. I felt like we shouldn't be trying to file a letter of opposition, and because we need this for our community. It's good for the whole community for them to get this done. Makes that water right more secure, and you don't have to go through it and file on it every 6 years to keep it up in the conditional right. So we basically got outvoted, and they did file a letter of opposition to it, which I was against because they filed a letter of opposition against our 87.3, and it's gone on for 5 years since that happened. And I told him I didn't want anybody else to have to go through what we've done, what we went through with our 87.3 already. And anyway, it's controversial, but I think people need to understand we have a lot of good direct flow rights that are pre-compact, but most of our storage rights in the state of Colorado are all post-compact. So if there actually is a call on the river, they can call all those storage rights out. There's a few, just like our 87.3 that we're trying to change to a storage right, that's pre-compact. They have some more of that 505 that they could change to a storage right, and it would still be pre-compact because it's an 1885 right. We need to be supporting those things, in my mind, as Southwest, not opposing them. And I realize you can file an opposition and actually try to support this thing, but I'm not sure that's where they were going with it. So anyway, just to clarify what my position was on that last week at that meeting, because I wasn't very happy with it. I'll just put that out there. I think there's a lot of people in this community that pays taxes into Southwest, and they don't feel like they're being represented very well. That organization should be there to help us get all of our water rights straight and help us get them in the best position we can for in the future. And I'm not sure that we're really doing that job like we should. That's all
Okay. All right. Well, I spent, like Travis said, Thursday and Friday at CCI looking over the end of the bills that are coming. About 26 days left in this legislative session. They're trying to get some of these pushed through. One that came in front of us was Senate Bill 24-194, which was a special district's emergency services funding. We voted in CCI to oppose it, one, because there are no guardrails on the impact fees that fire districts could impose on land use. So say you're putting together a new development, you can, or they can impose impact fees, but with this legislation, there were no guardrails on that, which is a big concern for everybody, specifically here in the counties. And then allowing them to go out for a sales tax, which the biggest issue here was it would then allow all special districts to go out for a sales tax, which then, which is in direct competition really for municipalities and counties. So this was opposed. But let me tell you the other bigger concern that I have, and people need to understand this too. We just got yesterday a legislative report, and this is going to affect us all in this county. And this is to aid in the ongoing conversation and negotiations that we have for taxation. So it's now being proposed or thought of, hasn't been presented yet, but a thought of moving the residential assessment rate from where it sits right now down to 6.3, which is a significant decrease in valuation for us, or significant number in percentage, and that's over the next 5 years. All of these that I'm going to tell you about are for the next 5 years. Over the next 5 years, what would it do is a reduction of the commercial assessment rate to 25%. And could these reductions in assessments rates be absorbed without backfill from the state? Well, I can pretty much tell you right now, if the state continues to reduce these, we won't be able to fund our county without any kind of a backfill from the state. So it's kind of bizarre that they would even ask that, but they're asking it. And then also too, which I think Initiative 50 states this, is they want a revenue cap of 2% per year. So it would be a 4% cap per the assessment cycle of every odd year. And then it says, do you think future growth in property values will offset the potential revenue reductions? Well, that's who has a crystal ball, who knows what growth is going to be, and who doesn't know what it's going to be. So as the state keeps messing with these, we're going to have all of these special districts that are going to be coming out saying, you know, with these valuations, and everything being moved down, the RAR moving down, the value that they are getting becomes less and less and less and less. You know, a fire engine costs on the upper end of probably $1 million, $900,000. That's just a standard engine. So just something for everybody to be concerned about. However, because of 194, what it did as far as taking away what the counties and municipalities function with, that was actually opposed. So not sure yet to date where that stands, but that was a lot of conversation on that one. On 21-11-10, which Travis alluded to earlier, the 80A bill, which we're supposed to be compliant with by July of 24, that is going to get extended. We're going to have another year to reach that compliance. And as long as we are showing good faith efforts in compliance, it doesn't sound like we're going to get hammered too hard. Also, too, within this next, this extension within this year, it's going to give us a little bit of flexibility. If we determine that we can't, say, take one of our scrolling signs and make it audio also because of the cost, then we have the flexibility to be able to move out of that. So there is some latitude now. It sounds like it's coming out for 21-11-10, which is a very good thing. Those are probably the big highlights. The solar issue came up. A lot of discussion based around solar. The state wants or was asking the question, you know, how many people in their land use are accepting solar, which I think all 64 counties are accepting solar. They just have different land uses, and they follow it and they move within it accordingly. I did express to them that we are one of two counties in the state that have sovereign nations reservations on them, and that those people do not have to comply with anything that we have within our land use code, and they can put as much solar on there as they want, as displayed with this Sun Bear project. That is the third largest in the nation, and it is going to reside right here in our county. A lot of conversation around decommissioning, and again, we have no conversation within that. So I'll move on from there. We did have our workshop yesterday. We went to meet with the Dolores County Commissioners. We did have the aides, John Whitney and Naomi Dobbs from Congresswoman Bobert's office and Senator Bennett's office. As an update, we had a meeting last month, and we were wanting updates every 30 days. We were told last month that we would have the amendments were being worked on, as it is in the representation of Anfield, the mining company. And we were told yesterday that we still have no amendment, and we're promised at least the bullet points to what the amendment is going to represent by this Friday. So further to come on that. However, the letter that we did send, which we presented here about 6 weeks ago, that we sent back to the Department of Natural Resources, it did have a letter that was included the Western Small Miners Association, and they are also in favor of the NCA. So our urgency for this NCA is because of the pressure that we're feeling against the monument that is happening in Montrose and Mesa County. So more to come with that. And we will meet again within the next 28 to 30 days, and hopefully we have something by the end of this week from the Congresswoman as far as at least the bullet points of what is might be in the amendment. And with that, Kim, would you have anything? Okay. I think we've come to the end of our agenda, gentlemen.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn this April 16th, 2024 meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.